wrestling?
Absolutely.
We are so excited. Man, I can't believe that we made this happen in a short period of time. But of course, this is episode 13 of the Sports Shop Drop In. The usual suspects are here: myself, K Mac, Jasmine, Chucky Brown. But we got the lady who's I can't begin. I don't have no time to explain how much I love this lady, how much she contributes to the world in general. I mean, it's just incredible. But let me tell you why we're here. Then I'm going to introduce all the guests. Since historically white universities and colleges recruit, sign, and enroll the whopping majority of the highest ranked black athletes every year, the Ultimate Guide, which is the publication developed by Dr. Deborah Stroman, brings to bear different questions and perspectives an athlete can use is tailored to this specific racial demographic. And regardless of whether the head coach is white or black, the black athlete must be aware and mindful of the racial dynamics that exist on these campuses. So with that being the backdrop, as I say, I'm so excited to have a lady who needs no introduction, but she is Dr. Deborah Stroman, professor, trainer, author, entrepreneur, and all things that's good in America. I mean, that's seriously a contributor to our show once a week. With this episode of Distro. We're just happy to have Dr. Stroman with us. Good evening, Dr. Stroman. How you doing?
Good evening, and a deep bow to Jasmine, K-Mac, and to you for all that you do in the Triangle, Greater Raleigh. I just love your show. I love the way you all bring it and keep it real, and I'm blessed to be a part. And as much as I love you all, I have to give shout out to my frat, Chuck. So good to see you as well.
All right, go Mom.
Oh, man, and also joining us, man, is a gentleman I just had a really nice conversation with. His coach, still call him Coach Jon Shoop, who coached football 2 decades, both in the NFL and the NCAA. And currently, John and his wife, Dr. Marsha Mount Shoop, host a podcast entitled "Going Deep: Sports in the 21st Century." So happy to have Coach on. Coach, how you doing this evening?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on. It was so great to talk to you before and recount just to see how many different connections we have amongst us all.
Yeah.
Deb, it's so good to see you. And Marcus Berry, how about that, man? Huh? How you doing?
And speaking of Marcus Berry, we're talking about Coach Marcus Berry, who was in his third year as the University of Maryland's director of recruiting for the Terps. The Terps signed top 20 classes consecutively since Coach Barry has been there, and we're happy to have Coach Barry on. Good evening, Coach Barry. How you doing? Okay, we're still working with Coach Barry. He's on. Trust me, he's on.
Yeah.
Coach, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Just trying to
Okay, all right.
stay out
All
the
right.
way right now. Just trying to stay safe.
Hey, look.
I'm just trying to stay safe right now.
Hey, look. He
There you
director of recruiting. Look like he's recruiting right now.
So Dr. Stroman, we're gonna get a mic to you. The Ultimate Guide. What's the backdrop? What's the impetus of why you put together what I really call a really outstanding piece of documentation?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. And so some people know me in this area. I've been teaching at Carolina since 2007. And my doctoral work is actually in leadership and organizational behavior. And I've been able to apply it to the racial equity spectrum. I teach graduate students in the Gillen School of Global Public Health. But also, I was born an athlete. I played basketball at the University of Virginia, had the opportunity to coach and win an ACC championship with Coach Jennifer Alley with the Tar Heels. And I have a center of sport business and analytics. And as you all know, sport and race come together, and especially so much now where we have more prominent athletes speaking up. And this is before the awakening that happened with the loss of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and Elijah McClain. But I thought that this was about 2 weeks ago. I've been, thoughts come to me as a writer. And I said, Deb, you've got to sit down and birth this. And it just flowed. I mean, I wrote it within a few hours. And in fact, there's more that I want to add to it now. But the thought being that certainly historically white institutions and colleges grant, and we're talking about the elite athlete, a lot. There is no doubt, but still Black athletes, elite athletes need role models. They need curriculum. They need experiences. They need a holistic experience that addresses who they are as young Black men, young Black women. I have a lot of pet peeves in this space. So, for example, calling a Black male who's 18 years old, who's 22 years old, a kid. This is not the time to call a young Black man who's looking for manhood and finding out who he is, that he's a kid. So I have a laundry list of things, but it was my expression to say, hey, Black America, if you have a young person, in particular, a football player that is elite status, you have your choice to go any school in America, bowl bound. Take the time to do a check-in. Take the time to think about, you might not play football forever. What type of relationships, favorable relationships that you're going to build, and what are you going to ask those people during your recruiting visit that might make them a little bit uncomfortable, but will also let them know that you're thinking about more than football. So that was the impetus. That's why I wrote the article.
Oh, that's outstanding. Hey, Chucky, I'm gonna get you in this conversation. I know you said you had an interesting story. I think this conversation fits your profile pretty much directly. Talk about a story you had when you was being recruited, things of that nature.
Well, when I was being recruited, I was coming from a family where my father was a bus driver and my mother worked in the phone company. And, my cousins had got recruited, but I didn't really get to talk to them about their experience. So I think that I was just happy that these big schools were coming after me and not, when I went to NC State, I knew nothing about NC State. I knew nothing about NC State. I strictly had gone to NC State because of the coach being from the same city I was from. So it was, I didn't look at certain things that I should have. But now that my daughter is getting recruited, or my daughters have been getting recruited, when I go into a meeting with these coaches and things, one of the main things I'm asking them is, well, what about after they're done? What can you do? How can you help them after they're done? I look at different things. Like I didn't look at, whether, that particular coach was helping. I didn't even ask whether they were helping other former players and things like that. But I look at now, what do they do? Like, okay, I'll give you a perfect situation. Like you look at Duke, look at Carolina. When I look at Duke and Carolina, I see Hubert Davis on the sideline. I see the May kid. I see what's the big kid? Eric, I can't think his name, but does the radio. Montrose. I see Eric Montrose. So if I'm getting recruited, I'm looking at that. Like, okay, well, they taking care of their own. You know what I'm saying? So I think that when I was getting recruited, I was kind of blind to that. Wasn't really thinking about that because I hadn't experienced anything like that, and nobody had. I didn't have any help. So now, as my daughters are being recruited for their sports, these are the things that I'm looking at. How are you taking care of them after you're done playing? Because I never wanted to be considered just a basketball player, and I don't want my daughters just to be considered, athletes, and then after that, you're done with them. You know what I'm saying? So, I'm writing down, taking notes, and tell Dr. Stroman that the notepad only comes out for special occasions. So this is a special occasion. So I wrote down how she said, calling athletes kids. You know what I'm saying? And I can remember getting called a kid, years ago. This is back in the 80s, and it used to irritate me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, damn, I'm still a kid. I'm like, so that right there sticks to me. And the recruiting visit, asking me uncomfortable questions. If I could turn back the hands of time, my father just wanted me to get an education because he went no further than the 7th grade and was forced to go into the military, or had to go into the military because long time ago, they had to pay to go to high school and he couldn't afford it. So he went into the military. So, I mean, asking me uncomfortable questions, I don't mind doing that now.
Outstanding. It makes me kind of ask this question, that probably especially for all you guys, Marcus, Dr. Stroman, and John. You know, my expectation now is I'm putting more onus on the parent to say, what type of coaching are you doing for your young athletes to say, here's what we should be asking, here's what we should be looking for. What kind of conversations are you having about what they want to do and where they want to go before you even get on a campus or before a coach sits down at your dinner table? What are your expectations as a family and together before you even get to that stage? And I think using Dr. Stroman's, methodology, for me, I think it goes beyond the athlete asking those questions. I think it helps having that dinner table conversation with your athlete before anybody else comes in your house. So you can say, okay, now we're ready to invite somebody in to have a conversation. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Let me jump in here first because I really want to apply some racial analysis work here.
Okay.
And I'm a firm believer that people are not broken, systems are broken. People are not broken, systems are not broken. Systems are broken. And I can't remember which NBA player just posted today that the majority of the NBA players come from low to middle income households. And so with that being said, they might be first generation, they're elite athlete. And so they don't know what to ask. They're just as snowballed as that 16, 17, 18-year-old. So I want to say that first. Now, with that being said, again, once you know better, you do better. So once you do have some information, some data, and maybe even the confidence, knowing that actually you have the power, then you can ask those questions. But I did write the article for students and parents because you don't go on visits without a parent or a guardian. But I want to make sure that we don't point the finger at the parents in terms of how they are falling short. This is a massive structural racism concern, just like it is with healthcare, with business, with media, with education, and now we're talking about sports.
So Marcus, why don't you jump in on that? Obviously, you right in the middle of it right now. This is what you do. You are the recruiter coordinator for the University of Maryland football team. How talk about some of the things that K-Man just mentioned, if you can, please.
Well, this is actually year 5 for me coming up at Maryland.
Oh wow!
This is year 12 total in college football.
Wow.
We're working in recruiting, and it's kind of interesting. Some of the things I've actually talked to Doc about this. A lot of times when college recruiter, when students come in on visits, and I've done so many of them, Coach Shoop, when we're together at UNC, kids will come in and parents will come in, and a lot of times, with the elite guys, the top level guys, sometimes the last thing they'll talk about is what your faculty looks like, one of the last things they want to talk about is what your academia looks like. They want to know, how are you going to get me to the NFL? Like, that's what they want to know. They want to know what is it that you're going to do to get me to the NFL when they have that bad when they come from a bad situation economically or socially or financially or socially or what have you, especially when they're elite. They don't want to know what your situation. They want to know, how do you get me to the NFL? And a lot of times parents look at their kids as this is my lottery ticket. How do you get my lottery ticket to get me to hit my lottery? That's what they want to look at. But now more than ever, I think what's happening is hopefully now, like I'm praying that this is not a moment, that this is a true movement.
Yes.
And that we got, this racism thing got to go. Like it's got to go. And I'm praying that this is a true movement. And that's what Doc just said, like, we got to fix that. And some of those things that I read in Doc's article we got to fix those systemic problems. And like one of the things, especially at my age, I'm tired of the words. I want to see action. Let's see action now. Let's see action and see those things. And the thing is, and I'm not sure if you guys know this or not. Most of you probably know, but University of Maryland actually has a dynamic that is the first time in the history of the FBS that we actually have, for the first time, we have a Black president of the university, a Black athletic director, and a Black head football coach.
Wow.
So
didn't know that.
it's a little different at Maryland because it's actually we actually get a chance to like talk about it because you get a chance to see three guys in place that's never happened before on the FBS level. So you're like, whoa. So kids get a chance to see that. Oh my God. Black kids get to say, oh my God, I can be that. I can be that. Whereas nowhere else in the country, you actually get the chance to see that. So that's something we get to show our kids. Like, hey, look, this is what it is. But everywhere else, they don't get to see that. Now, there's some places where you might have a black head coach and a black AD, or you might have a black head coach, or you might even have a black AD. But there's no place where there's all three.
Wow.
Is there any surprise why you've been doing so well with recruiting?
Yeah, because we're using that.
That's a part of it.
Yeah, that's a part of it. We're actually using that. That's something that we're actually showing that, hey, it's a chance for it. But it needs to be something that happens all across the board. You know, so in the NFL, they actually have a quote unquote Rooney Rule. To me, there needs to be a Rooney Rule all across the board. Like in every job that comes up, you need to actively pursue people that are qualified of color, and you need to like actively recruit them to get interviewed for every position that comes available, because there are people all over that are qualified to be able to chance to have the opportunity to interview for every position that's out there. But a lot of times you get passed over. Like to me, my dream has always been to be working personnel in the NFL. But I've always been passed over, not because of just racism, but of nepotism also. Right. So many guys get jobs in the NFL, in personnel, on all those type of things, not because they're the most qualified guy, but because they know that they got the right daddy or the right uncle or the right family friend. And because of racism. Some dudes miss out on jobs but I've had to fight the racism and the nepotism throughout my career. And it's just so unfair. And it's just time for that to stop. Guys need to be able to get positions based on their merit, based on their experience and all those type of things. And this racism thing got to go. And I pray that, like I said, I hope and pray that this is a movement and not a moment in time. And tired of words, let's see some action.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I hope and pray the same things. Definitely a movement, not a moment. Coach Jon Shoop, let me get you jump in here. Just your reaction. There's been multiple questions already, but I know you wanted to jump in, so we just open the mic up to you, sir.
Well, I feel strongly about what Dr. Stroman and Marcus both said, and would agree. I don't think of racism necessarily as just one person's racist actions or words towards another. Racism is systemic, is institutionalized. This is the systems that universities are built upon. And if you're not working, I would agree 100% with what Marcus said. Anybody can send out a tweet or do a video and say, I'm against racism. Well, you can say that, but you're not anti-racist unless your actions are working towards dismantling those systems that, and Marcus, I would argue too, I don't know what you would say, nepotism is part of white privilege, of racism. That's all, those aren't two separate things. This is all one body of work. And if people don't work, specifically if white people in privileged positions and in positions of decision making don't work to dismantle those systems of white supremacy and white power, then you can kind of take your words and shove them. As far as I'm concerned, they're just words and not actions. I would agree with Deb and Mark both. And Deb, I got to say publicly, I mean, this article is something else. I mean, Marcia and my wife and I read this and we're like, wow, this is really strong. And I think it's a great outline for any young athlete, not just a young black athlete, but any young athlete to look at. And if they're serious about anti-racist work, you don't have to be a black person to be in the NAACP. I'm in
Oh,
the
there you
NAACP.
go.
Right,
I'd
right,
ask the coach what NAACP stands for, if he
Right.
even knows that. I think
Right.
you'd be surprised. Most wouldn't even know.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
It's funny you say that, Coach, because we had the president of the NAACP, the Wake County chapter, and he was talking about how enrollment was going up, and 80% of the people that were enrolling in the chapter were white individuals. So it's the whole dynamics are changing, and people are really trying to, I guess, lead and be a part of something.
Well,
Jazz, you had a question?
let me just add real quickly. That's
Mhm.
the history of the NAACP, that it was founded with a multiracial group. It was white,
Right.
Yes.
blacks, and brown all working together. But
Mhm.
again, whenever you're talking about the cause of improving our community, then all of a sudden, oh, it's not for white people. It's not
Right.
for Jewish people. It's not for, and that's just crazy.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I have a question. Just getting back to the actual work, the guide, the checklist you have for different individuals. How do you see any challenges like having that conversation? You spoke about sometimes parents not having the confidence to have those types of conversations, or even just being so happy that their son or daughter is being sought after. So what do you see in using and implementing your ultimate guide, and what recommendations do you have for making those conversations a little bit easier for the people asking?
Well, thank you. Well, there's no doubt that once you become, and again, the label is placed on you as that elite athlete. It usually starts by at least 8th grade. And so you get the posse, you get the people that start hanging out with you, and they could be family members or they could be neighborhood friends. But all of a sudden you've got lots of cousins and people who care. And all those things lend themselves to you're being spoiled. And so you're not paying for meals anymore. Somebody's always giving you a ride. And there are teachers who will pass you. Some because they want to pass you, knowing that one day you're going to be in the pros, and others because they're getting pressure from administration. We want to keep the young man or woman eligible. So with all that being said, with all those pressures and understanding that for some parents, they're not used to this, that's why it's my responsibility. And I would say everybody on this call tonight, everybody, Sports Shop, my fraternity brother, Chucky, it is Coach Shoop, it's Coach Barry, for us, because we know we've been there. We've spoken to people. We know how this plays out. So it's our responsibility to help educate, to help guide, and to help counsel. And so for me, I write. I also like the microphone. And so what are we going to do? And I'm speaking to everybody who's now listening to this broadcast. How can we help inform those who don't have this information? That is our responsibility. Everybody has to play a part in dismantling structural racism. And we just can't put it on that uninformed parent. Because if I think about my situation, first generation, my mom was an athlete. My father and mom, they divorced when I was little. My mom didn't know. She just knew I was really smart. And so thank heavens, I ended up going to a very, very good school, but I had other people that I could talk to who could help inform me, including, my siblings. But, not all of the families have this. So what are we going to do to help these young people? And don't be surprised if they don't want to hear it. You're not my circle, but we must be persistent. That is our responsibility.
Wow.
Amen.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Amen. I echo that.
Hey, Coach Barry, I want to ask you a question I was curious about when you was talking. Do you get different questions if this recruit is black versus recruits being white? Or do you get the same questions from in regards to what they look like when you recruit them, their interest level?
It's a little different, but it's kind of the same. It kind of depends on like the level of the player, but it depends on like you talking about from parents or you talking about it from parents.
No, well, actually, I hadn't thought about that, but actually, from the recruit itself, that's your student, potential student that you guys recruiting.
From the player, it's different. Like kids, man, today, let's say they're so different. Like it's changed so much, I guess, in the last 10 years. Like it's so crazy. You can plan a great visit for the kids. I mean, you'll show them everything. Like you'll show them all your facilities. You'll get them around campus. You'll have a great academic visit for them. But man, these kids today, man, they want to put on the uniforms. That's like the big deal for them. Like you put them in the uniforms and you get them in the gear and all that kind of thing. That's the highlight video. They can take the videos of it and the pictures and they put them on Twitter and Instagram and all that. Man, that's the highlight of the whole visit. Like more than anything else. Like they had a great visit if they could put on the uniforms. That's the kids. But you kind of got to show them what's going to look like, how it makes their future, how them coming to your school makes their future better, like on the field and off the field. One thing that Coach Loxley does that, man, he's a great guy. Like he's one of those guys. He's not just a great coach, not just a great recruiter. He has a great reputation for being a great offensive coach, quarterback guru, and a great recruiter. But he really cares about what the guys are going to look like after football is all over. So one of the things that we do, we actually put the kids, every player that comes in, we put them with a mentor who's usually like a owner in the area, or a guy that is a high level executive in the area who's usually a Maryland grad, and that guy teaches them how to be successful outside of football. So not only want to make sure the guys get their degree, we want to teach them how to be successful in life. So every kid in the program gets and we also sure every guy does at least 2 internships in their field and have that on their resume. Whether they make it to the league or not, we want to make sure that they're be prepared to brand themselves and be prepared for life when football is all over. Whether it be right after college, after a 2 or 3 year career in the league, or after a 10-year career in the league, you're prepared for life when it's all over with. And we try to sell that to every guy, whether you're white or black, it doesn't matter. You got to be prepared for life when it's over. Because one day football is going to end, and when it ends, you will be a young man. Coach heard me say this before. We've said it all the time, even when we were UNC. NFL should stand for not for long, because usually when you're there, you're not there for long. It's very rare to have a long career in the NFL. Very rare. You're very fortunate, but you just got to prepare kids for that. They don't want to see that when they're 15, 16, 17 years old. Right. But you have to, as a staff, you have to prepare them for that. And the number one thing is getting a degree, but you got to do those other things to prepare them for the inevitable day it's going to, and prepare them for those things. And that's what we kind of do. We do that from there, but doing all the things, and that's kind of what our deal is. And,
go ahead, man.
Like I said, what their ethnicity is.
So I'm loving the conversation, and Dr. Stroman, Marcus and John, you probably don't know as well, but the Sports Shop, we like to really get into it, and I just want to get into the next step. So you guys have been recruiters, you've been coaches, you've been recruiting. Dr. Stroman, you've been recruiting as well. Chucky, you've been around. How this works? This guy comes in, this young recruit, this hot athlete comes in, and he starts asking you all these questions. Realistically, that more than so, say 5 out of 10 of the coaches gonna say, "Okay, this guy's gonna be a problem." I mean, realistically, let's be honest. Let's just call it what it is. This guy's gonna say, "This guy's gonna be a problem." I'm gonna, I don't know if I'm willing to put up with all of this, right? And I'm trying to figure out. And going back to what Dr. Stroman said, we all have to get engaged. And going, John, to what you said, you gotta stand for something. What's the next step? Because that's what they're going to face, and that's what a lot of these young superstar athletes are going to be concerned about. I don't want to piss that guy off because he may have the keys to what Marcus was talking about, getting me to that lottery ticket. Right. I'll let you guys, John, and whoever go first.
Well, I think that's a fantastic point, and it's been my experience. Part of the culture is almost to bully recruits when they do come on a visit and keep their time so occupied that you take all the air out of the room, that there's not space for some of these questions. I mean, of course, players are intimidated when they walk into multi-million-dollar facilities with all these trophies. I understand why they'd be a little bit nervous to ask, have you ever taken part in a protest?
Right.
And that's a very, K-Mac, I think you make a very good point. These players know that if they upset this coach, that could really affect them.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to tell you. It's been my experience. That effect has been intentional to keep players with blinders on, not looking at other stuff and just doing the job at hand. That's why players have every hour from the morning they wake up, or from the minute they wake up to the minute they go to bed. Some schools even now are monitoring players with by their phone where they go 24/7. That's why that's happening. And I'll tell you, that's very intentional. And that's part of white supremacy culture too, to just take control of this situation where it keeps you from asking some of those questions. I think these players need advocates. And I think, Marcus, you nailed something as well. I think players need models of people in powerful positions. And it's one thing if you go and visit a campus and the running backs coach or the defensive line coach is a black guy. It's another thing if the offensive coordinator is, or the quarterback's coach, or the decision maker people. And that's a really important factor. And Marcus, and Maryland does have something going for it. The models, the models for the young men coming in there, the decision makers are black people. And boy, I think that's really significant. Right now, I teach in a high school, and I argue with not argue, but I'm in discussions with the superintendent and the principal. 1/3 of the students that I teach are non-white, either black or Latinx. In our entire school, we have 2 black teachers.
Wow.
And we're a pretty big high school.
Wow.
That's a problem.
Right.
We're not modeling for young men and young women. I think it's important they see people that they can. I've always thought a model is a good example. And I don't want to just tell a wide receiver, hey, Randy Moss could be your model. Yeah, he could be on the field, but son of a gun, K-Mac could be your model off the field the way he, or Debbie Stroman could be your model off the field. She's got a PhD, things like that.
Right.
And I think models are important.
Oh, that's good stuff there, man.
Dr. Stroman, Marcus, anybody?
Yeah, I just wanted to. I've been writing things down, but Marcus, I could feel his passion. You know what I'm saying? I can feel his passion. I think that the mentor thing is such a great idea. To come in and see someone successful that looks like you. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know that Maryland had all of the people in decision making positions being people of color. I did not know that, and that also helps. I think that'll help. That would definitely help me in my situation get recruited. But also like the nepotism thing. I think we talked about this before in the past show.
Yep, we have. Yeah,
a lot of things that happen like in the NBA. I'm really connected to the NBA, so a lot of things that happen in the NBA, it's a lot of nepotism involved. You know what I'm saying? So I get the question all the time about me coaching in the NBA and all that. I've done all the reaching out that I'm going to do, and when I lose to a 21-year-old whose father is the GM, okay, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? So it's time we move on. But yeah, and I want to touch on another thing that coach said about having the blinders thing. Even like in the pros, like I know it's harder for them to have the blinders on them now, but I can remember when I was playing, it was like, you don't really pay attention to the news and all that stuff. Like I was saying, in '92, I was playing for the Lakers when they had the riots out there, and I didn't even know about the young lady who had got shot in the back of the head at the store, at the grocery store, because the other part of having those blinders on, you didn't know. You knew about the Rodney King thing, but you didn't know about that. You know what I'm saying? So the blinders that does exist, and you know, my daughter now, she plays soccer at Carolina, and I looked at her schedule, and it's like, you don't have a break. You know, it's hard to have a break. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, so that all of that exists, man. And you know, this you know, even now, this stuff is just so enlightening for me. So I'm really appreciative of everybody on here.
Oh wow.
Well, I'll just, you know, this is something I teach my students, and a lot of them will repeat it back to me. I don't even have to finish the sentence, but I teach, it's not what you know, it's not who you know, it's who knows you on a favorable basis. It's who knows you on a favorable basis. And yes, you can be that elite athlete, but how do they get to know your character? Now, some of that is revealed in terms of how you handle pressure and a loss. You know, are you throwing your uniform? Are you kicking the water bottle? All of that. But the other way to develop favorable relationships is to let them see you off the field, off the court. And so by being involved in other activities and not having your schedule so regimented by the sport team and the athletic department, this is how you can build those relationships with your peers, especially at elite schools. You know, somebody in that classroom is going to end up being a billionaire, right?
Right.
Somebody in that classroom is going to be super creative, whether that's an artist, an entrepreneur, or musician, right? So you want to build relationships in terms of your character. And how do you do that? You have to be a giver more than a taker. Everybody is a giver and a taker, but which one are you more of? Are you more interested in helping someone reach their goals, and then you will be blessed because of that? Or are you approaching people and saying, hey, I need this. Can you help me out with that? How much are you meeting people? And this is for somebody who's 17 or 77 years old. Are you being a giver? And when you see that, plus the fact that you're an elite athlete, your ticket is punched. Your ticket is punched. But far too often, communities of color, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color don't get that opportunity to show that favorable character, to be able to pour into others. And that is a part of, again, the structural racism. And so it's very complex, but I would say just on the most granular level, how can we serve others? That's how. And again, you might not have realized this when you were 20, but you might realize it now that you're 40 or even now that you're 60. It's never too late to be a giver.
Wow. Very, very good point.
Love you, Doc. Oh, God, you becoming strong, girl.
You go back. That's my man. You're talking about a giver. That's Coach Barry. Coach Barry.
So Dr. Stroman, let me ask you a quick question. So, and what, I mean, again, we're talking about the ultimate guide, and it's something that, and by the way, you may challenge people, you may challenge coaches on a lot of these questions, whether or not they know it, just like John said, ask somebody, what is the NAACP? Or, you know, where's the Black Student Union? Where's the Black professors? But at what entry point would this be more applicable to? And I'm thinking all the above, but would it be going to the ADs of these universities and the coaches of the universities and talking about having these conversations, going to the parents of some of these high-end elite students that potentially were going to these predominantly white universities? And what entry point you think would be the best to serve the documentation that you have?
Well, knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power. And so I think everybody is a lifelong learner and needs to apply this knowledge. And so when you think about that elite athlete, you've got that posse around, right? Whether it's loved ones, blood relatives, and then the buddies that have helped him or her out throughout their career. And so I'm always mindful of our youth. And we used to say, oh, hit them up in 10th grade. Now we're talking about 7th grade, right? And probably just because of their mental development, they wouldn't be able to understand if they're in elementary school. But still, a lot of these young men and women, girls and boys in middle school, we need to start talking to them about their culture, talking to them about that you are great, that you are powerful, you are going to do wonderful things. with the ball or without the ball. We need to pour love and greatness into our young people. And then certainly we've got some system work to do. And like Coach Barry said, I'm very excited that right now it feels like a movement. You know, I would have never thought that you're talking about the Mississippi flag going down, plus the Washington football team.
I know.
Drop the mic. This is a movement. This is a movement. And so the structural racism work that needs to be done, I'm encouraged by a number of universities, corporations, and nonprofits now who are not just doing diversity 101, cultural competence, flavor of the year, implicit bias.
There you go.
The research and scholarship shows, call me if you have a question. The research and scholarship shows that that does not move the needle. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a diversity class, that you shouldn't learn about the culture and, you know, why Italians do this and why these people do that. But what we're saying in terms of racism, race and racism, we need to go deep into that space. Talk about white supremacy, like Coach Shoop said. This is the work that needs to be done with all of our systems.
Wow. Go ahead, Coach.
Go Shoop. Yeah.
Well, I would just agree 100%. But I'd also say this, for white people now in the year 2020, ignorance isn't an excuse. You can't use that. You know, there was a time where I actually really believe decent people were, to a degree, unaware, maybe intentionally unaware. I call it white obliviousness. They kind of purposely stayed in their bubble. But right now, ignorance is inexcusable. If you're in a position of power at a university or in a sports team or in a business or anything, and you're not aware of white supremacy culture and you're not doing the anti-racist work to dismantle those systemic racism, from my opinion, there's no more grace period. You know, you should know, and there's no excuses in the year 2020.
Wow.
Outstanding.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Great, Matt.
You know, I have a question for Coach Barry and John and Coach Shoop. Just listening to you guys talk, and Dr. Stroman said something we were talking, you know, she was talking about, you know, it's not all on the parents. It's not just the parents' responsibility. You know, it's everybody has to get involved. When you guys think about that guardian or that parent that comes on that visit as a coach, what is their role in your eyes? What is that role for that guardian, that parent, just to be there? I mean, other than just a chaperone, so to speak. But what is that role? Because Coach Barry mentioned it. The young 19-year-old is going to be enamored by this cool new sneakers and jerseys and the video that they play on the big board. He's going to be enamored by that, so it's easy to distract them. But what is the role of their parent or that guardian that comes on that visit? And should they be empowered to be that person asking those difficult questions as well to the coach and the AD and the head coach, etc.?
Yeah, their job is to like look down the line. Like they want to see 5 years, 10 years in the future, and not just look at now. Don't look at, you know, their job is to not just look at playing time or not just look at, you know, those type of things, what it's going to be like on the field. They got to look at the whole picture. You know, look at, you know, and I try to get kids to build the pros and the cons on everything and look at the whole view and not just not have tunnel vision. And you would think an adult would help them with that. And that's why what we try to do is we try to, like, you know, you try to find out who the champion is in that kid's life. Sometimes it's not the parent. Sometimes it's not the mother or the father.
Wow.
Sometimes it's not the coach. Sometimes it's the grandma. Sometimes it's an uncle. You know, sometimes it's their trainer. You know, sometimes it's not the mother or father. You know, for whatever reason, and it's like it's a lot of broken homes. It's a lot of single moms. You know, that are out there. So sometimes it's a lot of situations where there's not the dads are not in the life. You know, what have you. So you have to like identify who the actual champion is in each kid's life and figure out who's going to be the one that kid is going to lean on to help them make that big decision. Most of the time, this is the first big decision of each kid's life.
Yeah.
This is the first big one. So you have to help them, find out who's going to help them make that decision, make that big decision. And, and it's interesting now with this new rule that's going to come out. It's probably going to hit in January. It was going to hit earlier this year, but because of the pandemic, it got moved back. But it's going to hit that they're going to give where you're going to have basically you're going to be able to transfer and no sit out. It's going to happen. Ooh. So when that happens, it's going to be like free agency. So it's going to be really important that you keep your players happy. Where you're going to keep them happy wherever they are, and it's just recruiting is just so tough. But the biggest thing is that when you recruit the adults in their life, you hope that whoever helps them to make that decision is going to help them to think down the line, and not just for that time. And that's kind of what you're hoping that the adult in their life is going to have to do.
Exactly. Coach Shoop, comments on your stuff?
I always thought it's important to recruit more than just the individual, but recruit all the people that he cares about and care for him, because those are the people that, I don't know, maybe when the guy's a sophomore and is kind of hating school or isn't doing as well as he possibly can, those are the people that I would often call and say, hey, can you help me push the right buttons here? You know them better than I do. Mm-hmm. And so I always talk to our staff about try to recruit this guy's community. And what you'll find now, I think, too, Marcus, this will be important. Coming in second in recruiting a player in 2021 may be okay if you keep that relationship, because by 2022 or 2023, he may want to come back, if they are able to change. And so recruiting more than one person, but developing a relationship with all the people that young man has a relationship with. I've always thought if somebody's important to you, I want them to be important to me, and I want to have an open conversation with them. I've been out of coaching now for a long time. I haven't been at Chapel Hill since 2011, and I still talk with parents and coaches of friends that of players that I recruited. I still do to this day.
Yeah.
You guys want to hear something fun? You're probably the most important person in almost one of the most important people in every football office is now, and basketball office, is the graphic designer.
Yep.
It's the
absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. You're exactly right.
He has to send out edits, and he has to be super creative to send stuff to those kids' Instagram and Twitter to keep that kid engaged.
Yep.
That's amazing.
It's the weird, it's wild, but you have to have a creative graphic designer to keep, because the kids don't open mail anymore. You can write these elaborate letters and great letters to a kid, and the kids don't open their mail. They only open whatever you send to their phone is what they're going to get. Yep. So you have to be creative and whatever you send to their phone. Now, the parents will open mail. You can write a great letter to the parent, and they'll open their mail. But the kids don't open mail.
Well, that is
have a great graphic design.
All about branding now.
It's a different world, man.
Yes, different world. Coach Barry and
I see a couple of your letters. Those letters that you remember, Coach Pittman used to write those great letters, those funny letters to people. The kids don't even open letters anymore.
Yeah,
they won't even open them.
Wow.
Coach Barry and I used to play golf together, and we've had little fun bets. But I want to put, Coach Barry, I want to help you change, and so you're going to drop 50 cents in a jar every time you use the word kid. I want you to stop calling them kids. They are young men. All right,
they're young men.
50 cents. Yeah,
the young men. Okay.
Hey, don't feel bad, Coach Barry. She gets me every Thursday. Don't feel bad. Don't even take it personal. She beat me up every Thursday, so don't worry about it. Don't you worry about it.
The young man.
So hey, Dr. Stroman, I wanted to ask you real quickly because Coach Shoop and Coach Barry, gave some pretty interesting points about the young recruits and what they do. You oftentimes talk about the champion being one of the most important people in like a lot of young people's lives, and even in your own personal life, you know, because you talked about it earlier this year. We talked about mentors, and you said, no, you need to have a champion in your life. And who's that champion? Who's that going to be? How does that work for the young athlete that's got all of these pressures around them? How do they decide who the right champion? Because let's just be honest. Let's look at the Zion Williamson situation right now. Somebody in his camp wasn't really his champion because a lot of this stuff should have never even came up, just to be honest with you. So what's some advice on some of that?
Yeah, that's a rare example to Zion Williamson because he's beyond the elite athlete.
Yeah.
Right. And think about it. And he still ended up, you know, not
exactly.
Situation.
But what K-Mac is referring to, and I tease him and call him T-Mac, but he's K-Mac, he's the man, is, you know, when we come to business, when we come to academia, we often think about how we can advance as women, how we can advance as communities of color. And oftentimes we say, well, we just need to get them a mentor. And a mentor actually can be kind of a negative thing. So take, for example, academia, where you've obtained your PhD, you've ended up at a great university. To think that you've done all of that and you still need somebody to mentor you. We only hear about mentors for women and for people of color. You don't hear about white men getting mentors, right? When you think about business, you know, give the person of color a mentor. But what really makes the difference, and I'm not saying mentors aren't important. They can pour into you, they can help you. But what I'm talking about is a sponsor, also called a champion. A sponsor is someone who's at a level that you want to be at. They have power, they have decision-making ability, they have authority. And you don't find them, they find you. And this goes back to the point about exposure and not doing everything on the field and on the court. You have to be out there so you can get these favorable relationships. You have to have exposure so that that person, the sponsor, can see you and say, you know what? He needs to be up here with me. She needs to be invited to this special event that she wouldn't know otherwise if I didn't bring her up. And so that's why it's important for young people to get out and meet people.
Hey,
You need exposure. You need someone who's a champion, a sponsor, who's going to identify you and say, they've got what it takes. I just need to help them a little bit here and there, but I am going to advance them. And I had a great sponsor, a white male distinguished faculty member who helped me navigate UNC. But that's what I'm talking about sponsorship.
Yeah. Dr. Stroman, not to cut you off, but I can tell you everybody on this call can name that one person right now. That's that person. Everybody on this call can name that person, and that's in any walk of life, business, corporate America. I got a guy IBM that I talk to often, and he was that guy. So everybody can put their hands, or they can name that one person that was a champion. That was, we call them sponsors back in the day, that were influential enough to somewhat kind of guide you through the path or whatever. You still had to show up and show out. You still had to do your thing, but they provided the pathway in terms of allow you to get there. So very good question, K-Mac, and good answer, Dr. Stroman. But everybody on this call has a sponsor that allowed them to be where they are today. It's real simple, real simple.
And you can't go chase them and say, hey, will you be my champion? It doesn't work that way.
No,
they watch you. They watch you.
Yeah. Okay, guys, as always, we don't penalize for people showing up on time, and we try to keep it for an hour. But again, so we're going to allow obviously Coach Shoop and Coach Barry to chime, and then definitely Dr. Stroman. But just final words on this topic, something that you guys would like to leave us with. I'll start with with Coach Shoop first, if you will.
Well, what a privilege to join you all tonight. Deeply appreciate it. And I would agree with what Marcus said early, that this anti-racist work that our country is hopefully engaging in now has to be more than words. To me, as I said, racism isn't necessarily just one person's racist tendencies towards another person. It's systems that have held down Black people intentionally for generations. And if you're not willing to work on dismantling those systems, then you're not doing that anti-racist work. And some ways that you can do that is, Marcus, you're so on point, I think, as well with the University of Maryland, that there's champions at Maryland in positions of power, in decision-making positions that are models for all students, not just young black men that are playing football, but all students, to really recognize and appreciate, from the president to the AD to the head football coach. And I just appreciate the work that you all are doing, and I'm thankful for being a part of this conversation, and I promise to continue to do my work.
Oh, excellent. Coach Barry.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on tonight. This has been great. You know, it's always good to see Coach Shoop, Doc, my girl, love you so much. But you know, it's kind of interesting. You know, after some of the things that we've had happen recently, you know, got this crazy pandemic going on.
Yeah.
You know, I just kind of recall, like, after George Floyd was murdered. You know, we had a situation. We've been doing a whole bunch of Zoom meetings with our football team, and it was a couple days after he was murdered. You know, we've been doing football meetings, but for 2 days, Coach Loxley, we literally didn't talk about football at all. Not one day, not at all, for 2 days in a row. And we literally just talked about life in those Zoom meetings. And you know, one of the things that came up is our kids were really emotional. And one of the things that came up is the kids would just start talking about voting and talking about change. And it all came, you know, we're talking about those type of things and just talking about our differences and things like that. And through all that, it came about, the kids just came out and they just said, you know what? We want to make sure everybody on this team is registered to vote. So how about they put it on themselves? How about every kid on our team is registered to vote? All right. Every kid is on the team is registered to vote. Then how about they made another thing? They say, okay, on the day in November, how about we done made it, Coach, we're not practicing that day. Everybody's gonna vote that day. So it's just like things like that came about, and you're like, what? Like, so it's just, like I said, I'm praying that this is a movement.
Yes.
For change, for permanent change. Get rid of this nasty thing called racism in this country for good. And like I said, I'm tired of words. Let's make this a movement, and let's get rid of this thing. And I pray that in our lifetimes that, before we all die, that this thing is done forever.
Wow. Excellent. Dr. Stroman.
Thank you to the Sports Shop. Again, I love you all and what you do. Thank you for this opportunity to uplift my writings. And the word for me tonight is courage. I have a framed print in my house around courage and what that means. And so I'm taking this ultimate guide as a request, as a strong suggestion to parents, to young people, to their circle, to be more courageous, to ask these questions, to inquire about your future beyond the field, beyond the court. And then I'm asking us as professionals, as people who are seasoned and experienced in this space, to be courageous and to talk to those who may not know, to challenge systems, to challenge those in decision-making positions. What are you doing about these things? How are you making the environment for college athletes to be more holistic? So I'm asking everybody to exercise courage. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity to share more about the Ultimate Guide.
Unbelievable. That should be the last word, but I got to open up to Chucky, Jasmine, came back. After Dr. Stroman, it's kind of hard to follow that, but I'm going to open up to you guys. You guys got anything you want to mention before we get out of here?
No,
Chucky,
just a good conversation. Dr. Stroman, love the Ultimate Guide. I got to say, I hope that I see it like in some of the high school programs with the athletic department, something like that. I think it's so important. I hope it finds its way in schools.
Awesome. Chucky.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a few things. Like, I love these conversations because now that I'm coaching high school, high school young men, I'll say, so I don't have to put no money in the jar about saying the kids, high school young men. But I love what Dr. Stroman said about knowledge isn't power. Applied knowledge is power. So I'm taking that one with me. Also, ignorance, in 2020 is inexcusable. That it is inexcusable.
Right.
So I'm taking that from Coach, and also from Marcus, I'm going to take away how it's important to talk about, life with your players. You know what I'm saying? You have to, make them, let them know that you care about more than just sports with them. So I just want to thank everybody for coming on, and I'm taking something, from all of y'all. So thank you.
Yeah. All right, K-Mac. You're on mute.
Yeah, I got to click the right button. I got to make it really, really clear, really simple, guys. I really appreciate all of you guys for getting on, for all you guys for jumping on. And this is the work that it's going to take to do what Coach Berry said. This is the work that it's going to take to make this a lasting change, have a lasting impact. Having people like Coach Shoop, call it for what it is. Having people like Coach Shoop say, look, we have 2 African-American, teachers in this school. Come on, we can do better. Right. Yeah. We got to be better than that. And Dr. Stroman, having you step out, doing what you can do, like you said, doing your writing, we'll do what we can do by being on the air every day, calling it out, calling it like it is. And Coach Berry, you keep doing what you're doing, being that example and going out and touching some of these homes that, quite honestly, they probably live in neighborhoods like Coach Shoop said, where there's not many African Americans that they get a chance to say, hey, this guy, he's a defensive coach. Oh, no. There's a head coach, an AD, and a president. So congratulations on what you guys are doing. And this is the work that we all need to do to make sure it's done. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Yeah, and real quick, Coach Berry, I can understand why you're recruiting coordinator, because you recruited me tonight. I was ready to sign up right now. I'm just
why don't you do it? Why don't
you do it? And Coach Shoop, is so good talking to you. I heard a lot about your meeting for the first time, and we do have some common connections there, and we love to follow up with you at some point as well. And of course, Dr. Stroman always does it right and just hits the right point each and every time. And not only message I take from this, and I think what your document is doing, Dr. Stroman, the ultimate guide, you stepping to people, as we say in the neighborhood, you checking them. And that's what we got to do. We got to start checking people across all platforms. You got to call them out when it's not right. You got to check them when they're not right. You got to step to them when it's not right. And I think we do that in the form of the ultimate guide. And I think at the end of the day, everybody can move forward, and we can rid this racism across the board. Thank you, all you guys, for your time. We're going to sign off now. We appreciate you. Godspeed. Stay safe out there during this pandemic, and we appreciate all your contributions, things you're doing.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. God bless y'all.
Yeah.
All right.